how, when you become the one person in the family that makes money, how do you maintain relationships with your family? And what boundaries do you set? You know what I'm asking.
Yo, what's up, y'all? Welcome back to Black Excellence Daily. I'm your host, Sean Croxton. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Pioneer Pastures. I like to call it dairy products for Black folks. Why? Because their cows make something called A2 protein. And A2 protein is very easy for your digestive system to break down. So when you consume their products, you're very likely not going to have any of the symptoms of lactose intolerance. They've got 2% milk. They've got whole milk. They've got chocolate milk, which is absolutely delicious. I have to try to not buy it because I'll drink the whole thing in a day, but it's got 14 grams of protein per serving. They've got high protein milkshakes in vanilla as well as chocolate, 30 grams of protein per serving. And again, no bubble guts, no digestive problems at all. You can get yours at Amazon as well as Target and now at Sprouts. We've got Mellody Hobson back on the show today. And this is a very, very important topic. We've kind of touched on this a few times over the last 2 or 3 months. What happens when among your social circle and among your family circle, you become the one with the money? What typically happens when you become the one with the money is people want to borrow your money. They come to you, can I get X amount of dollars for this? Hey, can you help me with this? They will come, I've lived this before, they will come out of the woodwork, and if you don't know how to deal with it, you will share all of your money away. And when you loan people money, the chances are you're never going to see that money again. She'll talk about that in a minute. And so she's going to answer the question, what do you do when this awkward situation shows up in your life? Mellody Hobson's coming up.
You talked about dealing with guilt and the friend who was paying all this stuff for family. How, when you become the one person in the family that makes money, how do you maintain relationships with your family? And what boundaries do you set? You know what I'm asking.
This would be hours of conversation, but I'm going to give you the highlight reel. Certainly that has been my story, and I know that's the story of a lot of people of color who've had the opportunities that many of us in this room have had. And I say us because we're in rare air. For me, initially, especially very, very young at Ariel, my mother had very clear expectations. I joke I was my mother's retirement plan. She fully expected and believed that. And she used to say to me all the time what her expectations was, given that she thought in her own mind I was successful and she had sacrificed for me. And of course she had. But she put a lot of pressure on me, a lot. And I was up to the task, don't get me wrong, but it was pressure my friends didn't have. We had a young woman who worked at Ariel. Her father was the CEO of a big company. She was a young white woman. She was one of my other sidekicks at the time. She was great, great. And we were working on a survey that we were doing of Black investors. And so we were all sitting around brainstorming the questions we were going to ask for this Gallup survey. And so I said, let's ask about lending family members money. And she was like, you lend your family members money? And we're all like, there are a bunch of Black people at the table. We're like, yeah. We do. And so then we said, let's ask about taking care of elderly parents. You take care of your parents? And we're literally looking and going through each question, and it was not that this was a Black thing, but certainly every Black person in that room had that exact same experience, every single one. And we were in a room of mixed people. My husband, when I started dating George, and obviously after we got married, he told me, he said, in my entire life, no member of my family has ever asked me for money. Ever. I was like, can I do a trade? He's like, ever. And I was like, I mean, I knew the resources that were there, ever. And I was like, I don't even they aren't him. He's got teachers as sisters and all sorts. And I was like, that's amazing. So part of this is differences in the village that some are expected to take care of. But what I will tell you in the long story that I'm answering way too long is you have to set boundaries. You have to set very, very clear boundaries. And what I did, which was a bit extreme because it became debilitating to me and it was going to end relationships that I had, was I put, honestly, an accountant between me and my family. And I made it that you can't ever call me for money, but you can call this person. And you have to call this person. You can't, I'm not going to talk to you about this. And then this person will call me. It modulated some of the calls because when you have to call someone else who's a stranger, they did not like it. I'm telling you, it was ugly in the beginning, but I literally would not take the call. And I would literally send emails back or whatever and say, you have to call Tom. 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 So that I said, because I cannot define my whole existence with you around requests. Does that make any sense? So that was extreme. It was the only thing I could think of. I think other people have come up with other ways. The last thing I tell people all the time is when you make that decision, just understand it's a donation. You're never going to see it again. Do not expect the money back. And I always thought about myself, well, I'm charitable in a lot of ways. We give to, the United Way and UNICEF and this, that, and the other. When there's a hurricane or disaster, we give to countries. I was like, so my family and friends, certain people, they're just going to be a bucket. And I will give what I can afford. I can't harm myself because in doing that, I actually affect a lot of people's livelihoods if I can't sort of keep standing. So I don't want to make any decision that's reckless, that takes me down financially. But whatever I do give, I do not expect back. I never said that to them. But emotionally, that was my way of dealing with when I didn't get it back. There's a very famous person, you all know the person. We were having this conversation once and she said, her sister called and she said, could you help me buy a car? And she was like, yeah, I can, person's really successful. She said, yeah, I can help you with that. And she's like, well, what do you need? And she was like, well, I looked at a Lexus. She was like, a Lexus? She was like, are you kidding me? She was like, I was at Camry, something like that would be, so there is that overstepping. So she said, the sister got really mad when she was like Camry. She thought that was, well, why can't I have what you have? Because you don't have the money. You just don't. You're calling me. So the reason I tell you the story is she said the sister got the car and then showed up with like new stuff. And she was like, I was so pissed off. She was such resentment. She was like, I was so annoyed. You're like, for whatever reason, you're asking me for this. And then you got the resources to do X, Y, or Z. And she said, then I just told her, I said, let it go. You just made a donation. God will take care of you in some way in heaven one day. But for now, it is what it is.
That was Mellody Hobson. You can learn more about Ariel Investments at arielinvestments.com. You can watch today's talk on YouTube. It's called Mellody Hobson. Ariel Investments discusses the need for financial literacy. All right, my friend, that is it for me. Please leave a rating, a 5-star rating for the show on Apple Podcasts. I really appreciate that. Follow me on Instagram at Sean Croxton, and I will see you tomorrow. We've got, Reverend Ike on the show. Do not miss this episode. It's so good. I'll see you then. Peace.